And one more thing for breaking news. It seems there might be a shakeup at Sony, between Sony America and Sony Japan. Apparently, Sony Japan is losing faith in its Western studios between their underperforming of the sequels of Marvel Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, and now the uncertainty of Ghost of Yote. Sony Japan's Western studios, they feel they are underperforming, and should it continue with Ghost of Yote and the upcoming Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, like, my God, dude, that is a mouthful of a damn name.
Yeah, I'm about to
They
say
couldn't
you
shorten.
sounded stressed.
Yeah, they can't shorten that. Like, Jesus, syllables, people. They feel that these two games do not either live up to their expectations or success as previous Sony titles. Sony's going to pull the reins back on its Western studios and go more of an Eastern approach to have them tell more traditional stories and win back some goodwill to people. One of this comes from the Chinese market, and their games are mega selling and are super successful. Game Science, if I remember that name correctly, is the devs who made the Black Myth Wukong, and that game sold 10 million copies in a few days. 10. You don't hit numbers like that anymore, at least in the mainstream AAA sector of games, unless you are like a Rockstar or maybe a sports title. So, and for this to be their first big AAA game, hitting numbers of upwards of over 20 million just in the first year, whereas Sony, we won't talk about Xbox. Sony and Nintendo, their games tend to hit that in a few years. That's a little bit of a slap in the face. So, what's your take on this, Treese?
Yeah, once again, I know people gonna say, "God damn it, I'm tired of Trees saying the same shit." I just think this is part of them buckling down, looking where they can cut costs at. But I just want to say that if this is true, this is very. I think it could potentially be a dangerous game. It could really hurt Sony in the fact that Chinese customers kind of have their own way in their own like style of games, whereas I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if that really would feed into how we play games here in America. If you don't know the show, we are in America. So it's kind of like a different style. Even their anime is different in China. And there's a lot of sensory stuff that Chinese people have that people around the world don't have. So I kind of think it's a dangerous game if this is true. And honestly, I find it, if it is true, to be a very dumb move by Sony, because even though Ghost of Yote, the sales, I mean, it's been reported that it's 40% down from Ghost of Tsushima sales. But even with
That's a
that,
lot.
I'm not saying it's not, but even with that, the game only cost them what, 60 million to make. So your
Mm-hmm.
rate of return is still there. You still made way more profit because your cost was so low. And for a studio in America to make a game with 60 million is kind of unheard of nowadays. It just doesn't happen. So I think it would be foolish if this was the case to close a whole studio down just because they're based in the Western hemisphere of the world. I do know Chinese games sell just because their population is just so huge over there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, but let's just keep the facts straight. It is partially true that Sony is pulling back on Western studios. They have canceled a number of projects. I will emphasize that most of those projects was live service games though, so that's kind of inflated. And they haven't made a public announcement of having no faith or losing faith in any of the Western studios. So I don't want to spread propaganda or anything like that. This is just alleged. All this is alleged. But I do
Absolutely.
think this is part of them buckling down on the purse, just like Microsoft is buckling down on the wallet with Xbox. I think Sony corporate, because Sony does a lot more things than just this video game stuff. They have TVs, they have phones, they have other stuff. I think they went into that same meeting, like I said, Microsoft did with Xbox. They said, "Hey, the gaming portion, we know you make a lot of money, but you still need to watch your spending. And if you do have studios underperforming, we need to kind of let them go or spread them to other projects." So I kind of think this is what's going on in reality. It's not losing faith in Western studios. It's just a buckle down across the books.
Okay, I get you. I don't believe they'll close studios in a sense. I think it's more of a putting a lesser focus on the Western devs and going back to their roots, to the Eastern studios more.
But
Um,
China is not the root. Sony
no,
is
no, no, no,
based in
no.
Japan.
No, so maybe I'm mixing my words when I say more they're going back to their Eastern studios. The
Oh,
studios that they
so
have are more centered in Japan.
okay, okay,
the
okay. All
China
right.
the China was just an example of a competitor in a sense that are keeping their games a certain way of giving customers consumers what they asked for, and their games are blowing up. There's been some talks on, you had God of War 2018 that did gangbusters, and then as beloved and as much as people enjoy Ragnarok, it did not sell as much as the 2018. Same thing with Marvel Spider-Man. I believe that sold maybe in the 20 millions, and Marvel Spider-Man 2 didn't. But both of those games have societal dramas in them that I will not get into now, that people felt some type of
Yeah.
way of certain designs and game design choices in them. And that's more of a Western issue. Whereas the Chinese people, they're like, hey, we don't care about that. You all don't want that in the game. Okay, but we don't care about that. We're just going to make a good game, and here you go. And their games are taking off. So it's more of, I guess, more or less a sense of, hey, we're just going to deprioritize you guys for a little bit, and we're going to bring it back home. And Japan Studio and other studios they have back at home will take the helm more. I don't believe they'll close Sucker Punch, Naughty Dog, or any of those. And says, no, I won't go to that length. Yes, they have closed some recent studios and projects down, but like you said, those are more the live service, and those are more uncontested, unproven studios.
Mhm.
Naughty Dog has PlayStation way too much fame, from the Uncharted series to now the Last of Us games, the show. Sucker Punch
Yeah.
did the Infamous games, the Sly Coopers. No, they won't close them. They'll just be like, hey, I'm gonna send you to boarding school, and you come back right, we'll fix this. But viewers, listeners, fans, all in between, let us know your thoughts. How do you feel on either of these breaking news stories? Good, Ubisoft is toning it down a little bit. One less Assassin's Creed game trying to get their ducks in a row, even though they're not. And Sony, how do you feel about maybe them just taking a better look at things, a better perspective of their current studios and what's going on? Yes, they have canceled quite a few mini games, live service, but it goes back to what we've talked about here before. This generation is just, it's slop. It is a total flop. And it only feels now that the steam is picking up. But drop those likes, comments, let us know. Get in the conversation. Trish, you got anything?
I will say this, that if this was to be true, and I'm talking about the Sony story, I'm willing to try anything if that means Sony is gonna stop making the same fucking game.
Ooh.
Like, let's be honest, whoever they've been hiring to tell stories and map out stories for these games, they need to be fired and replaced. And whether you get them from the East hemisphere of the world, I don't care. As long as if it brings out a better product. Because honestly, Sony's games, and this is the reason why they make an initial game and it's great. And then they come with the sequel, and everybody's like, dude, you did nothing. There was no dramatic difference. There was no growth. It's like they got scared and they put it in a box, and they didn't want to color outside the lines. So they kept the story very generic. And like you said in the Ghost of Yote review, they just keep it really safe. And I just think that hurts the sequel even more. So if them saying, hey, we're gonna take it a step back, we're gonna give the other side of the world producers a chance to bring something new to the table as far as storytelling, I'm all for it, because Sony ain't about to keep selling me the same game over and over again. So listen, sometimes change is good, it keeps you fresh. So I hope nothing for the best, but do I want them to close studios down? No, just because they're in the West Coast. No, but I do want to see some growth, some better storytelling with more depth. I do want to see that. And if this is what's going to make it happen, then fine, I'm game, because Sony has a certain amount of time to make as much money as they can. Like I said before, that 10-year Call of Duty contract is up. So,
Yeah, I hear you. Telling the same story. Get their shit together. Clocks are ticking. Lot to digest. Those are stories for another time. Like I said, let us know what you all think. We're just here to bring you all the news, and we'll catch you on the next one. And that's it for this video of Are You Not Entertained podcast. Are you not entertained?